Hey, this is Spanner for the Spanner Rig Show. We're here, episode 9. Great episode. We got an interview with congressional nominee Mark Haugen. You marry two-time defending national champion coach Dan Huntley, and we are going to talk the GOAT of all GOATs. And here we go. Hey, this is Spanner from the Spanner and Rig Show, and we are here with Mark Haugen, the Democratic nominee for Congress for the state of North Dakota, and we're going to talk a little sports, talk a little baseball, maybe. Mark, how you doing?
Doing well. It's Tuesday morning. North Dakota, a little overcast, but heck, it's spring in North Dakota.
So you're a big baseball guy. You played Little League. You said Rose Glen, North Dakota, some Legion and Garrison, and then some baseball and football. Is that right for Bismarck Junior College, not State College back in the day, right?
That's correct, Jason. Yes, thank you. Yes, I grew up in western McLean County, western North Dakota, a little town called Rose Glen, just off the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. And I attended school at White Shield and played basketball and football through my formative earlier years and started Little League in the adjacent town of Rose Glen. We had a very, we played communities like Newtown and Parshall and Ryder, Makoti Plaza. We had what we called kind of a lake conference there. So a lot of fun. We were all farm kids. I think the only we had a grocery store in Rose Glen, so the family that run the grocery store, their kids played baseball. Otherwise, we're all farm kids in that part of the country. Um, Garrison, I graduated from Garrison High School, played football and Legion baseball, of course, and basketball, and I started thinking about college. I played for 1 year at Bismarck Junior College. Played football for an old NDS. Well, actually, he went on to NDSU to be the offensive or defensive coordinator. Leo Ringy. He was my head coach at Bismarck Junior College, and they had a football program for about 10 years before they decided to drop football. But it was a lot of fun for young men to play football in a 4-year conference. Back in those days, North Dakota State College of Science and Bismarck Junior College were part of the NDCAC, the North Dakota College Athletic Association, with Minot State, Dickinson State, Mayville, Jamestown, Valley City. And so we played against the 4-year boys. We had fun doing it. We hit just as hard as the bigger boys, and although we didn't win many games, we really enjoyed it. And I also played college baseball for Leo Riggy at Bismarck Junior College in the same teams, 4-year schools, 2-year schools. The I coached Legion baseball for Garrison for a number of years. I coached Legion baseball and Little League baseball in Underwood as well, which is a little community to the south of Garrison. And I also coached high school baseball. These are in my early 20s when I was
What
I had
school?
the
What's
energy.
you coach at Garrison High School, or what school did you coach?
Yeah, Garrison. I coached baseball at Garrison High
So
School
you're a
and then Legion
trooper.
in the summer.
I like that.
I'm a trooper.
I like that. I
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that.
White. I was a White Shield warrior from 66 to 75, and then a trooper from 75 to 79. So that's my formative and high school years in there.
I like that. So what position in baseball did you play?
A lot of outfield. I actually started playing Legion when I think I was 13. In small towns, you kind of have to dig down deep into the roster a little bit, or to the younger people. So I started playing Legion baseball at a pretty young age. So they kind of stick in the outfield, and I love playing the outfield. Actually, just stuck with that position for most of the time. And then as my later years, I did some pitching as well,
So I was
and
always
that's
a
what I
second
played.
baseman. I wanted to play center field. Center field gets to move around all the time. You're always backing things up and whatnot. And but I had kind of a spaghetti arm. But so I was always at second base. But that is what it is. It was
Yeah,
fun though. Baseball, most people don't know. It's like it's kind of my true love. I'm a Dodger fan. Um, you're a Twins fan. That's a minor league team. I get it. But no, I'll tell you. I'll tell you this though. Speaking of the Twins, you guys got Korea. You know, I thought that was really good for baseball in general. I thought that was really good. I mean, whether it would be the Twins or the Pirates or the Orioles, but for them to go out and get Korea and you guys got Sanchez, which I think he's going to frustrate you with strikeouts, but he'll be those big moments with guys on base, and he'll whiff away. But and he'll come up with big hits every now and then. But I thought getting Correa was it was just good for baseball to get more teams to try to compete. Because
Absolutely.
you and me are dying breed right now on baseball fan, and the lockout. I'm glad that's ended. Tell me, what do you think here is going to happen in baseball this fall, this spring, summer, fall?
Well, obviously, for those true baseball fans, spring gives us eternal hope for your team that you root for, and so we're hoping that obviously my Twins can perform much better they did than their stellar basement performance last year. But obviously, yes, the Dodgers are going to be tough. There's no doubt about that in the NL. Atlanta's going to be tough. Obviously, there's 3 or 4 teams right now that come to the top. I think the Yankees again are going to be a hard. Toronto. I think Toronto's improved greatly with bringing on
Oh,
Jose
Toronto's
Barrios.
really good right now. They got murderers row. They got a rotation, a bullpen. They're kind of scary.
Yes, so it should be interesting. Like, a lot of it has to do with, of course, injuries. Some teams just go through just a rash of injuries at certain points in the season, and so hopefully, like, for example, the team that you root for, can be fairly injury free, and then just hang in there. Don't have the long droughts that, the 10-game losing streaks and that type of thing. That'll keep you in the race for a long period of time. The new playoff system is going to obviously keep a number of teams in that fight for a longer period of time, which I think is good for baseball. The problem is in the upper Midwest, we have an open air stadium. This ought to be interesting if we make it that far, play baseball in late October
Yeah.
and early November. But the Twins, I grew up with Metropolitan Stadium. My parents took me there starting in the 60s. And, that's all that Calvin Griffith. He was tight in the pocketbook. And it eventually caught up to him into the late 70s, early 80s. And the Pohlad family came along and bought the team. And you got to give it to the Pohlads. Even though Minneapolis, is still a small market, they seem to have really put the money into the team. They're not spending big bucks. I think they're being smart about it. So I think that keeps the fan interest, keeps them engaged. And so, yeah, Carrera was a great sign for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, and he's got winning pedigree. I think that'll help out the team. It's always nice to bring a guy in that's still young enough to do stuff, not old, but he's got ring. You know what I mean? He's been to the World Series a couple times. I like that. So Vikings and Bengals. So tell me about Vikings and Bengals. And most people don't get it. I get it. I had an older brother, and he always told me when I was a little kid, you have to have a team in the AL, and you have to have a team in the NL. You got to have a team in the AFC. You got to have a team in the NFC, a team in the Eastern Conference, and the Western Conference. So I was a Jazz and Sixers fan, and I was a Cowboys and Oilers fan, and I was a Dodgers and Yankees fan, and they were all good. Like when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old or whatever when I picked those teams. And then I realized as I get older, okay, there's fanhood. You're gonna have to, gotta have a team. Dodgers are my team. Oilers moved. It was easy. I'm the Cowboys fan. Whatnot. And then I went to work for the Jazz. So when I was in college, so that was an easy deal there. But
Sure.
Vikings and Bengals. So explain that one to me.
Well, the Vikings, very obvious. I grew up in the 60s. My first recollection of a football game actually was that 69 season in the 1970 Super Bowl. I can't remember what it was, a 3 or 4. The Vikings and the
Super Bowl
Chiefs, and then the
four,
game
right? Super
prior to
Bowl
that.
Chiefs, Len Dawson.
Yeah, and before that, the loss. Actually, the first game I remember watching with my dad was the Vikings and Rams, that cold day in Metropolitan Stadium when we beat Roman Gabriel, Joe Cap, Dave Osborne. That's I kind of, as a young boy, those become your idols, and so then that was easy to root for the Vikings. Again, I keep thinking, am I going to be able to live long enough to see a Super Bowl victory? So I watched those 4 Super Bowls, and we lost every one of them, and now we haven't been back since the mid 70s when we lost to the Oakland Raiders, and so that's tough. But you just got to keep believing that the front office can pull this through. Of course, we had this big contract with Kirk Cousins that we have to kind of work through. So we're hoping that hopefully he can shine this next year and really live up to his contract. That's what I'm hoping as a diehard fan of the Minnesota Vikings that I've been my whole life. The Cincinnati Bengals fan is more recent. My wife's cousin is Logan Wilson. He's the middle linebacker for the Cincinnati Bengals. He played in the Super Bowl this year, and we watched almost every game of the season this past year. His Logan's mother and my wife were like sisters growing up in Dickinson, North Dakota. My wife grew up on a farm just north of Dickinson. Logan Wilson's mother grew up in Dickinson. Grandma still lives in Dickinson, which would be my wife's aunt. That's her godmother. So they were very close to the family. And he was one of these 6'2", 170-pound with pads on and wet out of from Casper, Wyoming, looking for someone to pay attention to him for a football scholarship. Coming out of Nechona County High School in Casper, Wyoming, Logan Wilson, and Craig Bull caught his eye, Craig Bull noticed him. Craig Bull started to watch him in some of the football games, and eventually that senior year, the former NDSU coach Craig Bull offered him a scholarship. Now he's a tall, lanky kid, and what Craig Bull saw was the potential to get him stronger, get him faster, get him bigger. And so he had no idea he was going to be a linebacker. He thought he was going as a cornerback, but they shifted him to linebacker right away in his redshirt season. And then in his freshman season, in his redshirt season, he started right away. He was barely 200 pounds. And we went down for one game per year in Wyoming, in Laramie. We would just take a caravan of family members from Bismarck and Dickinson down to Laramie, Wyoming, and watch a game a year. It was great to watch Division I FBS football. I hope someday NDSU takes that route. I guess that's my bias, being part of FBS football down there.
Well, we're going to bring that question up for sure. So, it's interesting. So when I coached, I don't like losing. Didn't like losing ever. Whatnot. And but when I'd get into the NCAA tournament or the national tournament or whatnot, the top 5 teams, 8 teams in the country would have the same players I would have, but they were taller. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out, how do they get these kids? So I go out to the recruiting showcases, and there's a big girl and another girl, but I always wanted super fundamentally sound, crafty kids that could dribble, the soccer ball, And the big kids, I'm looking at them, they're committed to Notre Dame, North Carolina, Stanford. I'm like, where do they get? And it hit me, and we had this girl named Kelly Crease, and she's the all-time minutes leader at Minot State. She was real tall but super skinny, and we redshirted her one year, and then she was 4-time All-Region for Minot State. And it hit me to, you just got to put time into and put some meat on them and build their frame up and whatnot. And then so she kind of she changed my whole view on how to coach and develop long-term thinking. I don't know. So it's interesting you bring that up because it's kind of and it's similar, obviously different sports, but similar. NDSU. So, I'm not going to paint you in a corner with the question that we ask all the kids. What's North Dakota's team, Sioux hockey or Bison football? But you did bring up Bison football, and so tell me, you think they should go FBS, and and what route would they go? I mean, would they try to save the Big 12? Would they try to get into the Big 10, or would they be just another also ran mid-major? I mean, I think they've got enough backing, and they win enough that they might be able to draw a lot of funding from big sources. What do you think?
Yeah, great question. And I look at it from afar. I'm not an NDSU alum, but I just look at it from afar. And being part of the Mountain West Conference and enjoying the games, whether it's Utah State or any one of the other, I'm thinking some of the other UNLV and some of the other programs that are out there in the Mountain West. I think that's the direction probably NDSU should go. When you read some of the other information that's out there, I think NDSU should be picky about it. Hone in on what's best fits them. Obviously, the other sports are an issue as well. The Summit League is a great spot for all the other sports. The NDS is very competitive. They have the rivalries with South Dakota State, even still UND and others. And so, I'm kind of conflicted on that too. And I read some of the other blogs and information that are out there from the fans. But maybe we can get into as a football only. But I think we've proven our point in FBS that we're the top dogs. We won time and time again, within maybe just an exception or two. We're winning the national championship every year, and some of our major rivalries at that level,
Have left.
whether it be the old Georgia Southern, Appalachian State,
James
Madison, they're
Madison, yeah.
just taking. Yeah, so I think it's worth looking west. Don't be picky. Or, I mean, we need to be picky about it, but look west.
It's interesting. We talked on the show a while back, but and I was talking about Paul Christ at Wisconsin. Is he worth $5 million a year or whatnot? I don't know what his salary is, but it's in the millions. When you go back to Miami when they were winning national championships, their quarterbacks were being drafted every year, but they were being drafted like in the 6th or 7th round. But they were dominating college football. If you get a quarterback drafted, you're going to dominate. I mean, that quarterback's significantly better than the rest of the FBS for the most part. NDSU over the past X amount of years, 6, 7, 8 years, only one university in all of college football has higher draft pedigree at the quarterback position than NDSU, and that's Alabama. So if you look at Wentz and Stick and Lance, Alabama's the only one ahead of them with their 2 first-round picks and then Jalen Hurts. So I really I love Bison football, and I think that they've just done an amazing job of building up and they've had coaching changes, and they've just maintained the juggernaut. It just keeps rolling on. The show goes on, as they say. So I love North Dakota, and I went on and coached Division One. And we finally had I had a bad team. We turned it around, and I jumped back. I couldn't get back to North Dakota quick enough. So you'd be representing North Dakota, but you'd have to live in like Washington, D.C., which, to me, I don't know that I could make that sacrifice. So, tell me, just, you don't have to get into the politics or whatnot, just, tell me your love for North Dakota and kind of why you'd go to Washington for that.
Thank you, Jason. That's a great question. I've been a Western North Dakota boy my whole life. I lived in Fargo for 1 year, and then I've basically lived in Western North Dakota, and I love this state. It's the beauty, the people. I think that's what makes a great place to live, is the people that you associate yourself with, and I'm always been a person of service. I'm a paramedic. I'm still maintain a paramedic certification, so I've worked on a small ambulance service, and I've also been an educator here in Bismarck for EMTs and paramedics, and I've traveled the whole state with leadership organizations and leadership duties. So I've been to Walhalla, I've been to Crosby, I've been to Bowman, I've been to Wahpeton. I've been in every places in between, serving the state primarily with the emergency medical services, and I want to take that next step in Congress. It was a very quick decision that my wife and I had to make running for Congress. Of course, it was a week and a half ago at our convention in Minot, and but I feel good about it. We have a lot of we're up and running with what we need to do to take off with this campaign, and I love campaigning. I ran for state treasurer in 2020, loved every minute of it. And although I did not win, I was the leading vote getter among the Democratic candidates. I think it's because I do have some name recognition out there for the service and the work I've done for 30 years, or even longer with my professional career. So we're looking forward to the campaign. We're in it to win, and we're off and running.
So this is a sports show, and this isn't about Biden, Trump, and party lines and all that stuff, but it is about North Dakota. I'm going to ask you one question, and I asked your opponent the same question, so I want to be fair. And I come to the show with the North Dakota perspective. So I don't care what happens in Washington, D.C. or Seattle or Denver or whatever, but we have the issue with the transgendered sports, and I've got a daughter that's, she's coming up, very good soccer player, what's your stance, in representing North Dakota, on that issue. And look, I understand, and I'm 100% with someone who feels trapped and, maybe wants to make a change. But what's your feeling on that person making a change and then competing maybe in an unfair division, or, what are your thoughts?
Great question, Jason. And I may not give you I'm still trying to formulate my mind on this a little bit, so I'll try to work through this. I am a Catholic. I do believe that our bodies are temples. We need to cherish our body, but again, those people that are struggling with their identity, whether it's transgender, and people that are, what I'm against is when people of the LGBTQ community are ridiculed and looked down on in some way. That's not my beliefs. We need to embrace them with love and respect and honor. And I do believe that my body's a temple, and my God made me in my image, and I that's my duty to my Lord. So I struggle. I really struggle with this issue. My sense is that in some situations, it may create an unfair competitive issue. I think that's probably yet to be seen. But those are my thoughts, Jason.
Well, I mean, Leah Thomas wins the NCAA championship by 5 seconds. I mean, it's not like it's close race, and that's fairly unfair. I do like, there is a new proposal, and I wanted to throw this out to you, and it's I feel bad because it wasn't out there when your opponent was on here, but it is a new proposal, and I'm going to bring it up because this is a station here, so they're thinking about going to open and women's, so that and this is high school, Olympics, and I don't know how far the proposal is going to get or whatnot, but open and women's, so that so if you're dominating the women's division and you're a woman, you could decide to go and compete in the open. You don't have to compete in the women's. It's open and women's. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that a solution?
I don't even know how to even answer that. I guess I'm more of a traditionalist, and I'd have to put some more thought in it. I just like the fact that we have just the two divisions. I think this is something that just has to be further evaluated and debated. I realize the NCAA is its own organization. It's a powerful organization. It's kind of a monopoly. I think that's well said and well known. And they can pretty much do what they want to do. I just feel I'm more of a traditionalist. So that's my answer, Jason.
No, that's good. So I'm going to leave you with just a fun thing here. You said Bengals. I can do Vikings too, whichever one you want. But Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Joe Burrow. They're all 0-1 in the Super Bowl. Who's the best quarterback in Bengals history?
I would say Boomer because of his longer career. Although there's some, Joe Burrow's still too young. I mean, the jury's still out, but probably I would go with Boomer. Boomer fits more when I was paying attention to football. Kenny Anderson was a little bit when I was in that younger age group. I wasn't watching much AFC football back then. Kenny was a good quarterback. He was a good short range quarterback. Boomer,
yeah, that 23 passes in a row or something, right? And then they beat the Chargers in that frozen game, and was that 1981? And they lost on that goal line stand, the Niners' famous goal line stand. But yeah. So well, that's good. I really appreciate you coming on. I think sports is a real connective topic. I think that it doesn't get asked enough, of people, or it doesn't have to even be sports, honestly. It could be religion and arts and stuff, but I like to get to know people a little bit, and just and let the people of North Dakota know you. So, but I really appreciate you coming on, and I think it's cool that you've given up your time as a youth coach. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jason. It was a pleasure to get to know you as well, and your love for sports and the teams that you root for. And good luck to the Dodgers.
I hope it. I can't stand the Giants. I hate the Giants. I hate the Giants. And for you, I hope Brock Wepler is one of my best friends. I hope your Twins have that Giants season like they did last year. Maybe not losing that first round, but so maybe Dodgers Twins World Series would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That was a great interview with Democrat Congressional Nominee Mark Haugen. Thanks for coming on, Mark. And now we're going to talk the GOAT of all GOATs. This is where all the bad boys come together. When we left off the individual sports, Rafael Nadal and Martina Navratilova.
Nadal.
Huh?
Nadal.
Whatever his name is. What's his name?
Well, what is Djokovic or Federer?
Oh, come on. Anyway,
Unbelievable. Okay, all right.
we left the
Golf,
individuals
you got
off.
the Masters, you got Tiger.
That's what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
know,
We
yeah.
left them off
Yeah,
because
we
they don't
did.
have to elevate anyone around them.
Yeah, that's the point.
Talking about the MVP of all MVPs. We got Babe Ruth,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan,
Yep.
Tom Brady,
Yep.
right? Pele,
Yep.
and the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
Yep. What do you could point at me? I guess. This is tough. Because you're trying to figure out how this plays in kind of in relation to what you said before about individual sports. Some team sports rely heavily more on teams than they do in individual. And an individual can carry the load, but in certain sports, like baseball, to me, I love the sport of baseball. As much as it's a team sport, it is more of an individual sport. It's a pitcher against a hitter, and that's it. In terms of how that goes, a pitcher can completely dissolve. In football, you are very team heavy driven in terms of that. So you need a lot of things to go right. Yeah, there's some elite players, but if your O-line's not blocking for you, if you're a quarterback, your receiver's got to catch the balls. There's just a whole bunch of things that have to go. Your defense doesn't play very well. There's a lot of those type of things. So that's more team heavy. And then you got soccer and hockey, and of course basketball, which you need a lot of other things to go with it. This is tough. The problem I'm having is the individual statistics and the championships that go with it. Do they shine more than others? Or is it just based on the success of one specific stat or another? And for me, it's tough. And the problem is because I'm much, much younger than you, right? So I'm more modern era here in terms of...
My birthday was recent. I just turned 30, bro.
Oh, man. But, for me, statistically, I would say, Wayne Gretzky was the greatest hockey player of all time and generationally. But honestly, from a team standpoint, after he left the Oilers, he never won a Stanley Cup. He got the Stanley Cup final in '93 with the Kings, but never won anything after that. So I'm like, that's tough because he didn't win any championships. So for me...
But how much older was he?
Well, he was still kind of young. He retired early. He retired when he was 38 years old with the Rangers. So
For 38?
Yeah.
It's a full contact sport.
I know, yeah, absolutely. And then here we are, Tom Brady going back again. So it's tough, man.
Let me tell you how I want to. I'm going to eliminate two.
I'm going
to eliminate Babe Ruth.
Okay.
Because he played before the sport was even integrated, right?
Yep.
It's tough to me for anything post 68,
Mm-hmm.
66, 68. Like Bob Beamon set the world record for the long jump by a foot or 3 feet or some crazy jump. The 100-meter was being broken in chunks, right? And then kind of all sports really became integrated and everything come in the late 60s or whatever. Yep. Now the 100-meter record's going by .001 or whatever,
sure.
So I don't, I look at that. Babe Ruth, to me, hockey didn't integrate until almost 1990. And I shouldn't say integrate racially, but 7 out of 8 hockey players, we talked about this, were Canadian. Mm-hmm. And there's less Canadians than in California.
Yeah.
Doesn't make the sport any less awesome.
For sure.
I mean, baseball was awesome during Murderers Row Yankees and whatnot. I mean, they're great players. But I'm gonna say, like, I mean, we have to have some sort of criteria for GOAT of all GOAT.
I know.
And in my way, you kind of eliminate those two. So it kind of comes down to Brady and Michael. It also eliminates Pele because we put you,
for sure.
So, when you look at it, and Brady got carried in his first couple titles by that amazing Belichick defense.
Yeah.
I just, is there anyone else better at elevating everyone around him than Michael Jordan? I'll give you an example. Michael left to play baseball for 2 years, right? So he comes
right
back.
in the prime, like right in his prime.
Yeah, and he comes back, and they're playing, I think, the Knicks or something, right? And the game came down to the final shot. And, and he's like getting double teamed. He's looking to do this turnaround jumper. And he goes up in the air and he sees like Bill Weddington or something all by himself. He scores like 50 something, whatever, and whips it in for the dunk to win the game on the last second. And you got all those moments where he's going in for the winning shot and he kicks it to Kerr or Paxton, depending on which Bulls run. And then you got the Scottie Pippen, coach. I don't know. To me, it's Michael above all else, and I know Brady's one. And does the fact that Brady have a supermodel wife that makes $50 million a year, and he takes less money, does that help his case because he takes less money, or does it hurt his case because he's got this wife that just funds his life, so he doesn't need to make as much as Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and do they need to make enough?
Tough,
I mean,
man.
you know what I mean? Or do they make too much money, and is that their fault?
Yeah.
Brady chooses winning over money.
That's a big debate in NFL in general right now. You think about the massive contracts. They talked about, of course, Aaron Rodgers one, and then Deshaun Watson's, which they're like, ooh, boy, like you are living, there's no meat on the bone there with these types of things.
Exactly.
But it's tough, man, because the problem is with both those, if we're narrowing down to those two, the problem is that
and that's just my opinion.
No, I agree.
You can add one of the...
The problem is that I like the Bulls weren't nearly as good without him, right? I mean, it's just they were good.
Well,
they were good.
They were up 3 games to 2 on the Knicks
Yep.
in the Eastern Conference Finals. Starks for the Knicks shoots a 3. Pippen defends him, turns and backs into him when the ball was in midair, and they called a 3-shot foul.
Oh, jeez.
And Starks makes all 3.
Was that Knicks go on to play the Pacers then the next year? Was that the Pacers-Knicks era yet, or was that a little later
This
on?
was
after
This
that.
was to see who plays the Rockets in the finals.
Okay.
So the Bulls, if they don't call that foul, the Bulls beat the Knicks in 6. And they're in the finals. So that's something you got to, that's a chink against Michael.
Yeah.
But
like in Brady's case too, like he's had some talented players, and like you said early on, the defenses are really good. But all these players, specifically, wide receivers in general, that looked really good. Edelman and Amendola and Welker and stuff like that. Would they have been that good? We just notice that they're good because, you get open, Tom's going to make, he just get open. That's all he says. If you're going to get open, I'll find you. I will always find you. And so, is it highlighted? It's the same thing, like you said, with Jordan was like, Kerr hits that shot, right? I mean, is it him taking away, a double team to make it an open look to the side because everybody's focused on it. So that's what I mean. That's tough, right? Like that's a tough part of it, how it goes. I mean, and then again, you talk about, in their primes, Michael was really good, at his elite level. Then he kind of tapered off a little bit with the, the Wizards or whatever. It's crazy how these elite players end up going somewhere else, towards the end of their career.
Carmelo with the Lakers.
Yeah, no. So it's tough. I mean, then if you get to be like, the problem I have is that like Michael had statistically dominated all the time, right? I mean, it was always...
And always defended.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget in basketball that if you defend all out the whole game, it takes away your jump shot. That never happened to Michael.
No.
First team all defense, scoring champion, NBA champion. And a lot of guys shoot a bunch of shots to score, you know, and it hurts their chance, like Carmelo Anthony, and it hurts their team's chances to win. Allen Iverson, you know, Tracy McGrady was with the Toronto Raptors, best defender in the NBA. His agent comes to him and says, you know, you're playing second fiddle to Carter, you know,
and they like cousins or something like that.
Yeah. And you know, you're gonna have to get out of here, and you know, so he leaves. He goes to Houston. He's a scoring champion, scored 1 million points. Never gets out of the first round. You know, he didn't have the legs to defend like Michael and score like Michael. He could either score or he could defend. That's something legendary about Michael Jordan that a lot of people don't have. You know, it's really interesting. I think, to me, it comes down to the Brady's money question. Does that help him or hurt him? Because if taking less pay is, you know,
we're talking severe. Like, isn't it up like this upcoming season? What's he getting paid? Like $25 million? It's
25 or 30, and you got people that are making 50.
Yes.
When Peyton Manning was making 18, Brady was making 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, he's always significantly 33% less.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, I look at it like, you know, to me, that's the thing. You know, his decision to take less money has allowed his team to have 2 or 3 more playmakers somewhere on the field, whether it be defense or offense.
Yep.
He only plays half the game.
Yep.
Is that a chink in his armor against Michael? I don't know.
I don't know. It's just, you know, it's tough because you have to compare the sports. I just think, you know, Brady's been to what, 9 Super Bowls? 10? 9?
10, right? He's lost 3, won 7.
You know, and that like right there. So he's basically half of his playing career has been in Super Bowls, essentially. I mean, he's played for what, 22 years, 20 years, whatever it is. That is something that is, I think, is another part of the game changer of this whole thing. You know, for me, you know, I don't want to slight Jordan, but what if, right? Like, what if he didn't play baseball? What if he did play basketball? If they would have won those and essentially had a 8-year run, then I think there's no debate with it in terms of that stuff too. So, and you know, the other thing too is back in the day with the NBA,
there's no way anyone beats the Bulls.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, he wins 8 in a row.
Now, do you think though, like everybody, you know, nowadays everything, you know, they get these super teams that get together, these, you know, 2 or 3 stars, whatever.
You know,
back then, you know, didn't feel like
let me. I want to address that.
You know,
and I don't like LeBron.
Yeah.
And everyone gives him crud for going to Miami and forming the super team.
But
let me break something down.
Year. I mean, he just decided to pack it in.
Well, he's the leading scorer of the NBA, though. Yeah. I'm not gonna sit here and defend LeBron. I don't like him. But here's the deal. Super teams have been around. LeBron gets a bad rap for super team. The Lakers, Kareem, Magic, Worthy.
They were all drafted by them, though.
Well, they traded for Kareem, right, with Milwaukee.
But he was there before Magic.
I'm leading to a point, right? So the Celtics, you got McHale, Bird, Parrish, Ainge, Johnson, or whatever, you know. And then you got the bad boy Knicks, and then you get the Bulls with Pippen, Jordan, Kukoc, you know. You get, you know, Kobe, Shaq, you know, whatever. The bottom line is, if you go back now 42 years or something, you got the random Mavericks title. You got the random Ben Wallace Pistons title.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the only 2 non-super teams to win a title.
Yeah, Spurs in there, they went on their run. What did they win, 5? Did
5 or 6. They had Robinson, Duncan. You got Ginobili, Parker, Duncan. You know, then you got Kawhi, Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, or whatever. I don't, you know, these super teams have been built. You know, the Bucks as well. One thing with the Bucks winning last year, they didn't have a super team.
No, they didn't. And the fact
they just have Superman.
You know, Giannis, and then him signing a massive max deal to stay. You know, when he could have easily left. You know,
I mean, you know, I thought for sure he was going to become a Laker.
Oh yeah, you know, honestly, you would have thought. I mean, it's tough. I mean, even for my Raptors, I was hoping that they would be able to kind of keep it together after their title run, but you know, no one wants to live in Toronto. But they're having a great year now. So, you know, so I mean, what do you say, right?
Jordan, Kukoc, Pippen, Rodman.
Crazy stat sheet to see Rodman. Like he'd have like 2 points and like
He has like the
25 rebounds.
You know,
right?
he has
Like,
like the highest winning percentage of all time.
It's unbelievable. Like
He's on the bad boy Nick Pistons.
Pistons.
He was on the Spurs.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
and then he was on the Bulls. You know, the Lakers or whatever.
Yep.
And you're looking at like 15 years of 55 wins every year forever. You know, and obviously I'm just generalizing, but. He was 55 wins. Like you got Robin on your team, you got 55 wins. But the crazy thing was he was on these teams with all these Hall of Famers everywhere he went. He was like on a bad, amazing team. You know, his whole career. It's kind of crazy. But these super teams have existed. You know, and you take a team like
they have existed, but they haven't existed in the formation of how they're so. Maybe it's because of social media. They're so politicized. I mean. You know, the whole LeBron, you know, getting together with Chris Bosh and going to Miami and, you know, the big three in the Celtics and coming together for that stuff. And I just feel like even...
There's some weird stuff, though, on how, like, the Celtics drafted Bird a year early.
Yeah.
They won a title. They didn't need anything. So they get to the first round, the bottom of no one's going to make their team. And you know, when you got the best player in college basketball is at Indiana State. You know, I don't know what's their nickname, the Sprinklers or something. Anyway, they like we're gonna take Bird a year early.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean that's kind of a little. There's 2 Larry Bird rules in the NBA. 2. You can't draft people before they enter the draft anymore. You know, that was kind of a little. That was kind of a. It was super brilliant, but kind of shady, right?
Yep.
It's a little shifty. And then the second one. You could go above the salary cap if you sign your own person. It's called the Larry Bird rule. So, so the Celtics were able to. He didn't want him to jump to the Lakers or somewhere. They signed him for $1 billion over the salary cap. You know, who's more dominant figure in their 2 sports? Is Jordan so far ahead of everyone else? You got Larry Bird, you got LeBron James, you got Magic, Kareem, or whatever. How close are they? Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain.
Yep.
How close are they to Jordan versus Jerry Rice to Tom Brady?
You know, for me, and the thing that I'm debating, and now we're getting really deep into these decisions, you know, is I feel like of all the sports, you know, I'm a hockey guy first, but of the sports, the NFL, with its hard cap and a lot of the rules that they have with, you know, how it's developed and stuff, is by far the biggest parity. You know, there are some elite quarterbacks that can, you know, take it to the next level. Yeah. But in essence, there isn't like you like for instance, you could see a rebuild as an example. An NFL rebuild is like 2 years, you know, maybe 3. If you're doing you draft a quarterback and it works out 2 to 3 years. In hockey, oh my God, it's an eternity. Basketball, it's an absolute eternity. I mean, if you are, you know, completely, let's say you trade off your best players and you're having to restart from scratch, turnaround in basketball takes a long, long time. In football, oh my goodness, you could make 2. I mean, you just think, well, what happened this offseason? And so because the cap is so hard, and even though it sounds like it's so hard, yet there just seems like there's rules for all these signing bonuses and they can push out the money and stuff. For that reason, that is why I'm going to go with Tom Brady, because in that sport, it is extremely hard. You think about the Patriots, and you know, like I'll give you the first 5 years and those first 3 ones, but picking 32nd, 31st, you know, like all those years in a row, and not signing maybe Randy Moss was a couple big ones, but they haven't really massive splashes, but they consistently, you know, with Tom Brady, and then of course. Assembles with the Bucks 1 year with the Bucks, boom, you know, wins the Super Bowl. That's why I think he's the GOAT. And I also think, for me, the other part of it is it's not a huge factor, but longevity. I mean, part of it's luck if you can avoid injuries, but being able to play at an extremely high level. I mean, wasn't Brady like a finalist for the MVP this year at 43 years old? Like, it's unbelievable. And so for those reasons, if he had tapered off, you know, then I'm like, okay, well, you know what? He lingered around too long. But that's, for me, is the reason why I think Tom Brady is the GOAT.
So,
all GOATs.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, and this is another reason I narrowed it down to 2 people. If we're to pick 7 random contests: bucket brigade, Monopoly, chess. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Of all athletes, all sports to ever play the game, I feel like the 2 most competitive people, period, would be Tom Brady and Michael Jordan.
Absolutely.
Like they would have to win no matter what the event is.
Absolutely.
You know,
I've seen the documentaries behind the scenes. Like it's incredible, like how
exactly
how
the same,
demanding they were of their teammates, and like kind of. I mean, Brady seems a little shade of gray, but he's tough. Like he's tough because he's such a preparation guy, and he hates it when guys wouldn't prepare that hard. But they were cut from the same cloth. Absolutely, they were. But demanding. So
it's so close.
What do you got?
I just
here?
feel like I just feel like if Michael Jordan was playing another sport, he'd find a way to be number 1.
Like baseball.
I don't know. A short amount of time, he was pretty decent.
Well, and I'll tell you this: we see like Tom Brady as an athlete in other sports.
Not happening.
I mean, he was baseball. I think he was supposed to be pretty good, but I mean, it's crazy to see his transformation from his draft year. Seeing those pictures and stuff.
Him and his dad basically begged the 49ers to draft him.
Man.
They drafted Giovanni Carmazzi. I know his dad, by the way. It's kind of crazy. Giovanni Carmazzi instead of Tom
Didn't he
Brady.
run like a 5.140 or something like that?
I don't know. His whole combine was a train wreck. But he did tell Kraft when he met him. Mm-hmm. So he goes, you know how you go to the mini camp, rookie camp or whatever, the rookie mini camp or something, in the spring. Tom Brady showed up and he told Mr. Kraft, he says, "I'm the best decision you ever made."
He sure did. You think about what they're worth now too. So who do you got? Who's your GOAT?
I think Michael Jordan's the GOAT.
Okay.
Tom Brady doesn't play defense.
Oh boy, this is. I mean, we've talked at length here. We've kind of dived into different kind of metrics to figure out what this is.
And I was talking myself in or out of it or whatever. I think there's a lot to it. I think it's super close. But this is one. We'll put this out on TikTok poll.
Yep.
We'll put this out on. We'll put a poll out on Facebook, and we'll put all the candidates up there. We left Sandy Koufax off, but I think.
I just kind of like to hear if somebody says like, "Oh, you slighted baseball," or something. I want to hear that. If we did, or if we're in the right track. I feel like we got to be pretty close in the final 2.
Well, here's my reason for no Koufax or Ruth.
Okay.
Because I think that if we put a poll out to just baseball fans, 90% of them would say we're idiots. It's Mike Trout, it's Willie Mays, it's Mickey Mantle. Yeah. I mean, baseball's so close with so many different athletes, or so many different players of so many different generations. Hack Wilson, whatever. Walter Mathewson, Bob Feller. I mean, I don't. Whatever. There's just so many of them. So we're not even sure Sandy Koufax and Babe Ruth are the GOATs of their own sport, let alone over Michael or Brady.
Absolutely. Well, and then on the hockey side too, I mean, Wayne Gretzky is the greatest of all time in the hockey, but 1995.
Morse Mikhailov.
Yeah, exactly. 1995 on, the hockey game has completely evolved and changed. It's like you will never see. You're seeing Connor McDavid finally have consistently over 100 points, but you will never even see 200-point seasons because the goaltending and the analytics and the systems are so much more refined now.
Wayne Gretzky's to me is like, this is why I think he's off the list as far as Cy Young. Okay?
Yep.
We're not going to see another 300-game winner in baseball, right?
No, it won't.
It's not going to happen.
No.
511 wins. 511. We're never going to see another 300-game winner. 511 wins.
What does 200 wins get you in the Hall of Fame now, isn't it?
So what I'm saying is that Cy Young played it in an era where you could accumulate numbers because the sport wasn't at its max competitive level. Hockey now has equaled the NFL, NBA, MLB. It's equaled those sports in how hard it is to win.
It is, yep.
They get players from all over the world now.
Because honestly, from the 70s through till the early 90s, you had the Montreal Canadiens winning it like 5 times. You had like 5 in a row championships. You had the Edmonton Oilers winning it like 5 out of 7 times. The New York Islanders in the early 80s. There was just, now it's like you maybe have like, a couple blips there with like the Colorado Avalanche and maybe the Detroit Red Wings, but it is, and then of course the Tampa Bay Lightning. You can't do that anymore. There's no way. The cap is so hard. It's impossible to see somebody win it 5 years in a row. It would be impossible. So
I got MJ.
Yep.
He's got Brady.
Absolutely.
We're gonna put the polls out and go ahead, because I know most of you're gonna rip on him. But go ahead and rip on him in the comments if you want to.
Absolutely. Let's see it. Tom Brady, the GOAT of all goats.
Well, MJ. I mean, seriously, I think MJ could play quarterback better than Brady could play basketball. We'll see.
Well, we'll hear from you. All right, we're here for our college segment. We have a great interview with the two-time defending national champion hockey coach Dan Huntley from the University of Mary. We had a great chat with him. Here's the interview. All right, here we are at Spainer and Riggs. We're in the college edition of the Spainer and Riggs podcast. We've got a very special guest, Mr. Dan Huntley, back-to-back national champions, U Mary men's hockey team. Dan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on here with you guys tonight.
Awesome. Well, Dan, last year was obviously a big one, winning at home and winning a national championship. I wanted to ask you, I know we've won national championships. You have certainly too. Does the second one feel a little bit more special? And I'm only prefacing it the fact that, first year, you won, but half the teams, COVID, it was a little bit inconsistent with who was playing. And now this year you had the full slate of teams. I mean, Florida Gulf Coast, big powerhouse team. So certainly there was no question about being a true champion. But does this one have a little bit better feel than the other one, or are they just both special?
I think they're very different. Last year, I think was in its own set will always be so special to our team and our school, our community, because our first year we were so successful and we're ineligible for postseason play. They didn't have a national ranking that year, but I'm sure we were 1 or 2 all year long. And then the second year, COVID hits, and we were 1 and 2 all year long with Lindenwood. Had an opportunity to go and showcase that year, and then you come to last year, and you don't know what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, hey, there's an opportunity to host a tournament. We host it. It's an unbelievable atmosphere because we've got the primetime games. We've got them all at our rink, and we've had so much success in that facility. At the Starion Sports Complex against Division II teams. Right now we're sitting, you guys have done well at your place too, but we're 69-1 against Division II teams at the Starion. It's been incredible to see what we've done, and it was more of a, and then at the same time you're hosting it, so you're doing all these other things along the way, and you kind of forget how to enjoy it as you're going through it. And so I think last year was more of a relief that we were able to compete for something, that we were able to do it. We were doing it in front of our home crowd. People stayed around. It was so, just kind of that big breath of air that you could relax to afterwards and then, realize that, hey, we did something pretty cool. This year, coming out and running the table from the get-go in the rankings, having a couple blips early in the year with Liberty at their place and going through and playing Minot tough, playing Jamestown tough, some of those highlight games that our guys really look forward to, and then you get to that time of the year that, it's playoff time and then our guys were really focused. I thought, in both tournaments, there was a focus that they had that they weren't going to be stopped. And we found a way to get through, to those championship games. Both games were phenomenal. And, you get a 2-0 game with an open netter and then a 3-2 triple overtime game. You can't ask for much more on the fan side of things. And so, it's pretty fun. I think that there'll be meaning to both of those teams down the road, what they mean to our school, the legacy that each of those teams bring to the future of our program and what it's done to help in recruiting down the road as well.
So, interesting story. I ran an indoor soccer facility. I ran it when I was in California while I was coaching college out there, and I would change it over twice a week for roller hockey.
Oh boy!
And one thing I learned when I was doing that is how diehard hockey fans are, And so we had this league, and it would go in the early afternoons with like little kids, and then it would in the evening was the men's, and then the AAA or whatever. You know, in California, you got it's pretty competitive, right?
Absolutely.
It was game one of the Stanley Cup Finals, and it landed on the same night as our hockey night. The whole night, only one hockey person showed up for their game.
Oh boy.
Everyone was dialed in on Stanley Cup hockey.
Geez.
So that leads me to you've started hockey at UMary, and this is gonna be a multi kind of part question. What does it mean, to you to be the inaugural coach, kind of, but and your team, your players on the inaugural teams and whatnot, but the student fan base and the hockey fan base of Bismarck. I mean, and have you raised the level, of like the youth hockey and, just for them to see some collegiate athletes at home and things like that at a national tournament at home?
Absolutely.
Like, what has it meant into your region of hockey, students to everything? And do the other student athletes on campus embrace the team and come to games and things like that?
Yeah, I think that number one, when we started out, and Wade knows that deep into this, controversy, I'll call it still, we wanted to be a Division I team, and in the ACHA, and we got denied. In the end, I think that was a blessing for our program that we were able to find our footing. We were able to gain our fan base. We were able to play a whole lot of teams across the United States that were willing to play us and take on a new program, and kind of let us develop who we were and have the opportunity to play Minot and Jamestown and get some of those top end Division I games, to be able to compete against those teams and find out, really where we were and where we stood. Our fan base is incredible. I think, the kids that we're recruiting now that we've gotten in the last couple of years with Johnny Witzke and Isaiah Thomas and hopefully a couple of the other kids that are local coming in this coming fall will be the first to tell you that, when I started talking to them, they didn't know who I was. They didn't know my background. They didn't really care about what it was. It was a program that, they weren't sure they wanted to be part of. It was going to be intramurals, or was it going to be competitive? And then all of a sudden we get Aaron Nelson, and that changed the scope of what our program has become. And Aaron, was a fantastic goaltender for us for 1 year. He won 83 games with the Bobcats, I think, and in the North American League, and was a defensive player of the week in the WCHA at Mankato. Now all of a sudden you've got that kid for a year, and we surprised the heck out of teams and made it tough for teams to play against us. That's led to other guys being with us. We've had 4 years. We've got 4 All-American goaltenders, and that's going to make any team good when you can have those guys be the top of the game and showcase who they are. But I think in our community now, we play in Mandan out of the Starian Sports Complex. Bobcats play out of VFW. High schools are expanding. Legacy got a new team this year. There's a new girls team coming in next year to Bismarck. And, so now all of a sudden, there is an upswing of things that are happening hockey-wise in the community. They're adding another rink to VFW. They need more ice time here, and now here's what's this University Mary thing, and all of a sudden, hey, that's a pretty fun weekend. We can go watch a game. Guys can have a beer. It's a different atmosphere than our other sports where they don't sell that and have an opportunity. We've won a lot of games, which is, most people will follow you if you're winning and it's a great atmosphere. They won't follow you if you're not winning and there's nothing to watch. And so that's, that it doesn't matter where you are. You're going to get good crowds when they have an opportunity to see teams do well, and you can be part of something special. So, I think kids are now, especially in Mandan, which our guys get to see kids walking through the hallways. They get to interact with them in between periods when they're going out to the second rink and onto the Buick rink and having their games or practices. and we're waiting to go onto the rink for our game or whatever it might be. And so now there's a connection and there's an interest of those kids, and those kids are showing up, at least from the Mandan side. I think more kids were getting more interest that, now it's a legitimate place to go. And so now the conversations go not, hey, can these high school kids come out and play? I think we've had so much success that it's brought on the opportunity. When we first started, half of our guys, or 60% of our guys, were North Dakota kids that first year, and then all of a sudden we're able to expand out a little bit and try to get a little bit higher caliber player. And now all of a sudden we're getting some tier 2 guys and getting more interest in that. And so the opportunity for that, that local high school kid that we had that first year or two isn't there anymore. And, you went through some of that stuff as well at Minot, where, you get kids that are calling you all the time and they want to play and they want to have an opportunity, but they're just not ready. And if we're going to be successful in the year 23, 24, I look at this year's recruiting class for us as our second most important recruiting class, other than the first year when we started, because we only lose 3 guys next year. And so this year's class of 6 guys, maybe 7, have to be that caliber of player that's going to make us competitive at the ACHA D1 level when we move in 2 years. And if we get all those guys that I think are ready to commit, we're going to be an unbelievable Division II team next year. And it's going to be kind of like a situation where Lindenwood was in this year, where they, had D1 transfers and NA guys, and, just really were very competitive above the Division I level, and we're ready to make that next step. And so I think that's going to be where we're going to be this coming year, and that'll be the benefit of us being successful down the road.
Dan, touch on a little bit, I was there early on. I remember you talking to you kind of in that early stages of when you guys were announcing hockey. You are the Associate Athletic Director at UMary as well. And I would have to admit, and I don't know if you want to admit to them, but I bet there was probably a little bit of trepidation about adding hockey, and then not expecting how big this ended up being, but just the impact it's made on your campus. Because I've seen your social media, I've seen your athletic director, I've seen lots of involvement from your administration, in your locker rooms and those type of things. And I know it means a lot to your institution, and they really made a great decision, by adding hockey. But just touch on, what the impact has been on your campus, because I'm sure everybody didn't anticipate it to be as big and so successful both on and off the ice, but it certainly made a big impact, definitely on the UMary community.
Oh, no doubt. And I think it was a perfect storm. At that time in 2017, our campus was looking for male enrollment, and the opportunity to go through, and it didn't just happen because there was a proposal out there. Our AD at the time, Roger Thomas, had just retired. And Dale Lennon and I both applied to be the athletic director, and I was the associate, and he was the director of public affairs. He's a pretty big known name in North Dakota. He got the job, and I was bummed out for about 5 minutes, and then I realized, hey, I've got a pretty good job as the associate AD, and this is okay. It wasn't my path. And I came here for a different reason. And that next week I went into him and said, hey, can I talk to you about hockey at the ACHA level? And him being at North Dakota for so long, being a second, kind of a tier 2 program behind their hockey program, he knew how important it was. They had a lot of success with football, but hockey was the number one. And he knew that, North Dakota is still a good hockey state, that if we could add this, it will be successful. And if we did it with the right way, with the right people, the right kids, we're going to have a lot of success. And I was lucky enough to be behind the whole thing and be the one that was hired and have the know-how to make a good proposal and make sure that financially we were set and we had a good budget. We were supported by everything in the athletic department, but funded through student development. and we don't charge our kids. We've got a pretty good setup, and there's not a lot of those programs in the ACHA that are set up that way.
For sure.
So we started off in the right direction, at least with the foundation of the program. Now we had to go find kids, and then I've had to not screw it up over 4 years. So it's but at that time with that male enrollment, it was a good opportunity for our school to gain 25 more kids. It was a good opportunity to expand our athletic department to a venue in Mandan, to try to make a connection with that city as well, where our other sports that play off campus all play in Bismarck somewhere. And so bringing the two communities together, and having us showcase and not have to fight with the Bismarck Bobcats on a Friday, Saturday night, who's playing when and everything, try to find our own crowd. I think that's really worked out well for us. And guys like you that give us that opportunity early to say, hey, University of Mary wants to play at home on Saturday nights. We want to have a consistent Saturday night home game with the North Dakota teams. We'll play on the road. We'll get home late on Friday night. We'll play at home Saturday. So everybody knows, hey, here's how we're going to develop the program. And they can come in and say, hey, Saturday night's the night to go to Mary's game. And so then, we've developed that over time, and it's worked out extremely well to bring in a pretty decent crowd. And so our campus, I think at the time, we were struggling with some of our sports for crowds and winning and other things. And it started to, help and kind of buffer maybe some of that stuff and give our students an opportunity to go to something and cheer and have fun and win and be part of that. And now it's filtered over to some of the other sports, and they're starting to get there. Baseball's been doing well. Football's starting to win games again. Wrestling is an unbelievable program right now with the atmosphere they have at their games. Basketball's coming along. Both teams made the Final Four and the Final Eight in the conference tournament in basketball this year. So we're getting to be where there's some other things that are happening, and so. I've always said we were kind of a buffer, and now, everybody knows about us. Now we got to continue to have people come and watch. And that transition to D1, I think, is going to help us out as well, because now we're going to bring in some new teams that nobody has seen before. And we're going to, try to strengthen the rivalry and have a great North Dakota rivalry with Minot and Jamestown, where the games are counting towards points. Yeah.
You bring up a question, give us a kind of a timeline. What will it mean? How big is the game? And when are you going to get over that Minot State hump? I mean, what's the next step, and how much it'll mean to get that first win over Minot?
And as much as I was talking, we're going through exit meetings right now with our players. And, some of the things that we talk about, I mean, how special it has been to win 2 national championships. There's still a hole. And we're trying to compete, and we look at those games with Minot every year and go, this has got to be the year we want. It doesn't matter how much we want it, we have to go out and prove it. We just haven't had the depth yet. We've got some good goaltending, we've got some good defensemen. They've played well enough over the years, especially this past year. I mean, their power play was better than us. And, that was, I think, the major difference in the game this year is their skilled guys were better than ours. And, so if we can continue to we're trying to do it with tier 3 guys, and they're doing it with tier 2 guys. And so we're lucky enough to be able to have some heart to go out and compete. Absolutely. And make it hard on them, and make it, competitive and fierce and rugged. But we're just not there yet. And so once we get to that stage where we're consistently getting tier 2 guys, I think we're going to be pretty even up, and then it's going to be a coin flip to see who can get that game, and goaltending is going to have to win those things. And so, hopefully it's next year. If it's not next year, we'll be ready for the next year and continue to go until we're not hoping to get that first one. We're winning every other one.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Dan. We've taken a lot of good time. I just want to wish you good luck. I do know when you're hinting at some of those recruits, I know exactly who you're targeting here. And if I was competing against you, I'd try to throw in some blocks in there. But it's been crazy. Him and I are rivals on the ice, but I consider us a good colleagues and a good friend over there. So, but we definitely wish you the best as you go for a three-peat and then transition to D1 in 2 years. And we look forward to maybe having you down the road back on our show.
Hey, thanks. For
I
coming,
appreciate that.
man.
It'd be fun.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Wade. Bye-bye.
Another great episode here, Spainer and Riggs podcast. We're looking forward to next week. We're going to take a deep dive into spring sports, which are heating up right now. And then we're going to talk a big debate about Division II athletics, specifically with Minot State. We're going to look forward to that episode. We'll see you next time.